here. It's just going to help me so I don't have to bend down to the floor every time I want a swig of water. So, first, it's amazing to see you all here tonight. Thanks for inviting me along. I was expecting to be here on behalf of the Legal Sector Workers United, which is the branch of UVW through which we're organised at a CERT in Digbeth. And on behalf of LSWU, I wanted to extend our message of solidarity to the CWU. It's been really inspiring to see how well organised. There have been over 1,500 workplaces, and somehow in conversations with plenty of Royal Mail staff, I've not come across a single scab. So here's hoping I won't say I've also promised one of my colleagues on the LSWU committee that I make a formal request tonight to the CWU for some postman pack merchandise for kids because, well, she would, was hoping that we'd make some really good Christmas presents, so no pressure getting that sorted. We're a pretty big branch in a fairly small union representing over 1,000 workers in the legal sector, but we're not just barristers and solicitors, we're admin staff, secretaries, cleaners, paralegals and caseworkers, organising at all levels within the legal sector. We cover private legal firms, workers in the public sector, there's a significant chunk of workers like us at CERT that are in small legal support charities. People, like us at CERT. My colleagues and I will be on strike this Wednesday, and you're all invited down to the picket at the Custard Factory. Starts at 8:30 a.m, going on till 11:30. There's the children's party for 75 children from 75 different families are going to be attending, and the board of our charity haven't heard, obviously, to cancel Christmas party for the kids. So, and we don't think they will. So, come down to that, it will still be on. We've also got another rally in the evening at the Warehouse Cafe from 6 till 8 if you can't make it during the work day. So I hope to see you all there. In my day job, I'm a caseworker for an immigration charity in Digbeth at CERT, like I've said. We work with people who need to sort out their immigration status so they can get into work, they can rent a house, so they can claim benefits in between jobs, and much more of the things that a lot of us will take for granted every single day. Our clients can't afford to get gouged by dodgy immigration lawyers, so they come to us instead. In the past year, me and my workmates have been talking about prices getting higher, of course, how we've all been struggling to get by more than usual, and it's useful to remember that in the charity sector, precarity comes with the territory. Contracts are relatively short term, they're fixed term, and often tied to specific funding bids. In March this year, we were told that we'd been awarded a particularly big grant, and it might not sound much, but that we'd be able to continue with the current staffing levels until March next year. At that point, with the news of bills getting hiked in April this year, we decided it was time for a pay rise. Management, the trustees of the charity, they made a song and dance about giving us 2%, ignoring our concerns about inflation. The point we made was that much like nurses now, how are we supposed to provide care and support to the best of our ability if we're constantly stressed and concerned about getting by ourselves? We faced a number of threats from the board, and now they've followed through with the worst of the threats, which is closure of the charity. Last Friday, we found out by accident that legally we can't do any immigration casework anymore because we're no longer regulated. We've basically been locked out legally of our workplace. And worse still, I'll take that drink now. And worse still, 500 of the West Midlands' most vulnerable migrants are now without representation. They could face destitution, they could face homelessness, Home Office applications could be declined, and eventually deportation is on the cards for them. But do the trustees care? No, because they're just volunteers. It's just in their spare time. They're not profiting from our labour. And that's the important lesson. Charity bosses don't need us. They can jack it in if they want, they can walk away. But in the private sector, we should always remember, bosses do need us. We don't need them. You might be sat there thinking, why is this guy talking about charity? But the whole charity sector is outsourcing. The charity sector serves as a warning to everything the working class has lost. Because when we were powerful, we didn't keep pressing forwards. The things we're dealing with are because of a system that grinds people down. Well, that's forcing people to flee the country of origin in search of better conditions. Whether it's homelessness, addiction or domestic violence, all of these problems are made worse by the system of greed and profit on one side and poverty and exhaustion on the other. It's outsourcing by massive companies giving a little trickle in the form of charity funding that gives them a nice little bit of PR and lets them feel free to keep feeding off working class lives. And how is it outsourcing for the government? The government, which I'm sure you'd agree, should be running services needed to plug the gaps in the system. They'd rather pay us a pittance than run a decently funded welfare state. We're hit with the same conundrum that nurses are at the moment and junior doctors before them. Going on strike doesn't hurt our bosses in the pocket where it matters, but it does have the potential to hurt our clients who are vulnerable. There's an expectation that in these professions, self-sacrifice is expected. That because you're helping vulnerable people, you should put up and shut up as conditions get worse, but we can't. Even if bosses aren't profiting directly, we're not aliens. Nurses aren't aliens. We still have the same food as private sector workers, we breathe the same air, and we're warm-blooded as well. So when it gets a bit chilly, we've still got to put the heating on, like everyone else. We have colleagues even in private practice legal firms that pay below minimum wage for the hours they're putting in, because bosses rely on that goodwill, on our charity. But enough is enough. Friends, after this round of struggles is over, we can't just stop. If we win on pay, if we win on conditions, those are just battles, but we mustn't forget that we're in a war here. We know that when the next recession hits, the owning and ruling class will be looking to squeeze working people and make serious bank. Even if services like rail and mail get taken back into public ownership, there's no guarantee another government down the line won't sell it off again. Royal Mail is a perfect example of this, being sold by the Tories for under 40p for every pound it was worth. If people in the 50s knew that everything they'd won with the welfare state supporting us from cradle to grave would be dismantled, and in modern Britain you'd be having more food banks than McDonald's, do you think they'd have stopped? No. They wouldn't, and neither should we in the trade union movement. If we think it's bad that bosses are relying on our goodwill, why should we rely on theirs? At CERT, we're organising, along with our union, to create a new organisation with worker democracy at the core. We're not making the mistake of relying on a board of unaccountable trustees again. With solidarity and organisation across the trade union movement, we can build a society where charity is no longer necessary. Through solidarity and organisation, we can turn the cost of living crisis into a cost of owning crisis, into a cost of exploiting crisis in this country. Good evening to you all, and solidarity.